It's time for another project, and this time, today, we're going to do one in watercolours. The last one, of course, was acrylics. Today, watercolours. And it's a photograph I took on my phone of a mate's house just down the road, about a mile away. And that's the house. And what I'm going to do, I shall add a few bits and pieces here and there. Might take away a few bits and pieces here and there. Just something to make it into a nice painting. Starting off with the drawing first of all, of course, and the reading glasses are needed, I'm afraid. And this is a very steep angle. You'll notice, by the way, I've only taped off top and bottom of the paper. I shall draw as far across as I want to come and then tape off the sides. Starting off here. And this is going upwards ever so slightly for the corner of the building there. Now, the front angle of the house is coming down really steeply. Oops. Like so. Now, a little bit coming up here. A bit higher, I think. Yeah, that's better. And then carrying on with the steep edge here. And a wobbly bit at the edge there, fancy bit, and come down. The pencil I'm using, of course, Screwfix. It's not IKEA today, it's Screwfix, but it's for nothing. Come down to about there. Now, I've got a couple of fancy bits here as well. And of course I am pressing on harder with my pencil. I always tell you this, but it's true. I'm pressing on harder with my pencil now so that you can see the pencil line. If I were just me painting it, I wouldn't be pressing on as hard as this. Bit of chimney you can just see there. And a little bit there. And with a painting like this, once you've got the drawing done, the painting is the easy bit. Trust me, I'm an artist. Now I've got a window here in the middle, and the top line of this window is running parallel with the top line of the roof. Likewise at the bottom there. Now once I've got the central one in, I just need two either side. So you can kind of like do a faint line, if you wish, just to keep them in line with each other. And then fill the top bit. And likewise the bottom. I'm not messing about doing window panes. Those will just be filled in with my pencil. Window panes I'll be painting, not window frames. And again, draw a faint line there, keeping parallel with that line. And two windows there. Now I've got fancy bits of stonework here, running all the way across. And just jutting out of it at the end there. A gap, and then another one here. And you'll notice as that line goes across there, how it gets slightly narrower as it goes further down, taking away a little bit. This is quite time consuming doing the drawing, but it's important that you see all these bits. I could come along with a drawing ready done and say, now let's paint this, but that will be defeating the object because you're not learning from it. Now here's a line coming out here. And I've just thought as I'm doing this, when I've finished it, I might go down and stick it in Rob's letterbox as a present. Because I've been drunk there so many times. Now I've got a couple of bits here, just fancy little bits and pieces. Don't know what that is up there, but it's a bit of fancy. That's better. Didn't like that one. And then a couple of pillars coming down. And then the doorway within. Actually, there, that's better. Now you can't really see there for the plants at the bottom, but I know that we've got 3 steps there. And then again, 2 windows here. About there. That's more or less in line with the top, the inside of that. Another one there. And the windows at the bottom are longer than the windows, bigger windows at the bottom than the upstairs. And again, 2 here. Let's have that faint line coming through. You don't have to do this, but it just helps you keep everything in line. And 2 windows here. And again, a fancy bit at the bottom there. Now at the bottom of that, you see inside here we've got, and again I'm not going to draw them, but you've got the inside of the stonework. Imagine here. But that I shall be painting rather than drawing. This comes round a little bit here. And now we've got bushes, plants coming down here. In front of the steps a bit. And there. And we've got some stuff going up here. I'm not going to draw that, but you know what I mean. Just coming up here. And we've actually got some little red roses, I think they are. I shall make more of those. A little bit of red always helps. And now the archway into the back of the house. Again, that's coming down a little bit. We'll turn in the wall there as that comes up there. As I say, in there we've got an archway. That's into the back door. The tradesman's entrance, the bit that I go in. There. And we're going to have, there are plants growing up here. Here there's a tree, for instance. I'm going to make that into ivy growing up the wall. Just makes it nicer. There'll be a little bit there, a little bit there. And behind, actually I'm going to bring that down a little bit steeper there. That's better. Ignore that line. Behind here, I've got the roof of one of the outbuildings, which is nice to have because it's got a chimney on it. And a big tree. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than it is in reality. Got a bit more wall back there in the distance. Down to the walled garden and a bit of grass underneath. Sorry, grass underneath. And here, a big tree. There's my car there, just realised that. I won't be putting that in either. Gosh, sirens. Sounds like London. And we've got a very big tree coming out on the top here, which is an evergreen. And that will more or less do for that. Time to tape on either side now. Time for the sky. I'm not going to have a particularly complex sky in this one. Fairly easy really. Just loads of water first. I'm using my 1.5 inch aquafine brush. You all know the brushes I use. This is the difference, you see, between members' videos and YouTube videos. I don't have to tell you all the kit all the time. But my normal 1.5 inch flat wash brush, aquafine. Plenty of water there. And I shall have just a little bit of burnt sienna and yellow ochre mixed. Bit of that. Tiny touch of that. Whack a bit of that on from the bottom there. Now again, wash out, squeeze out and mop it up. Now, just ultramarine blue. I don't know if you can hear all those noises going on behind. That's why I'm giggling. It's Gail's stomach that's grumbling. The very professional camera person. Now, coming down here with just ultramarine blue. And notice I've gone into the yellow. Lots of people worry about yellow ochre, about, oh, you've taken the blue into it, how come it hasn't gone green? Because it's yellow ochre. It's a heavier brown content. Now, again, mop up. And again, wash out, squeeze out. Let's have a couple of clouds in there. Look, very, very simple. Just sucks them out. Actually, I'm going to make that bigger. There, that's better. Yeah, I like that now. As I'm taking out, I'm just going to drop a little bit back in here and there. So some cloud shadow. And obviously, the next thing in this is going to be the house. It's the big bit. And as you can see, that's sticking up into the sky. So it's important just to let that sky dry properly before I go any further. Wash out, squeeze out, and mop up. Now it's more or less dried. It's still a little bit damp at the bottom, but I can carry on with the building. So now I've been waiting for it to dry. I'm going to re-wet it, because I'm going to pre-wet the whole of the front of the house. In this one I've got the light coming from the right, and I'm using my number 8 round brush. I'm just pre-wetting the whole thing. And I'm going to drop lots of colours in here to make a nice stone colour for the front of it. Northumbrian stone around here. My house is the same with the stonework. Beautiful, warm colours, stone. It's sandstone. There. And down here. And like I said, the painting part of this is dead easy, because you've done quite a bit of drawing, and now you're just filling in your own blocks, bit by bit. Carefully going around my windows, well, carefully-ish. Now, starting off with sand, Charles Evans sand. Popping that in there. And filling it all in. And filling it all in with the sand, but the other colours, I'm just going to drop on and let them spread. And carry on just filling in. Even I haven't got anything to say at this stage, which is a bit of a wonder really, that I keep my mouth shut for a bit. I don't expect anyone to agree with me. Do you, Gail? Mm-mm. 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 Now, because I put so much water on that, it's still good and wet. So now, with a little bit of yellow ochre, and as I said, the first colour, sand, just filled the whole lot in. The rest of the colours, I'm just going to drop them on and let them spread, let them run in the water. Now a little bit of light red, just a touch of light red. Light red is a lovely colour, but it is strong and powerful, so don't put too much of it on. You notice I haven't dipped in again either. paint run off the brush. Now, tiny touch of raw umber. I said there was a lot of colours, didn't I? Tiny touch of raw umber. A few bits of that here and there. Starting to look like a building with chicken pox. And now a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue, because that's the blue of the sky. Don't change the blues. Plenty of water into that. A few daubs of that here and there. Daubs, that's a technical term. Let that run for a second or two. Now, with a clean damp brush, I've just washed out my brush, squeezed it out. Now just merge those colours together a little bit. Look. And you see what a lovely stone colour that makes for a building. There's no way you're going to be able to mix that colour in your palette, so make it on the paper. Just let it happen. And the dogs are barking. They're repelling borders. Now I'll just let that dry. In the meantime, because I'm merging these colours here and picking up all the colours on my brush, I can now just paint in there with the ready mix colour on my brush. So simple. I haven't done the top because that's a different colour. Now, I just need to go in the top there and fill that bit in with that ready mix colour. And now a little bit of raw umber and sand mixed will give me a darker colour for that side. And you notice I haven't pre-wet that, just going straight in with that mix. I haven't come up to that edge yet because otherwise it would bleed in. A bit more. And now I think I can go up to that edge. Yeah, it's more or less all right. More or less. Don't panic about it. Now again, with that same mix, the raw umber and sand, I'm just going to fill those bits in there. Like so. And what you've got to remember is, towards the end of the building, when I put the shadow in, that's what gives it depth and shape. And there'll be shadow underneath these bits. There. Front of the building done. Now, whilst I'm still in with that same mix that I've just done those with, I'm just going to fill in the inside of those windows there. Like so. I'm not bothering with the top, just down those sides. I'm not bothering with the top because, again, that's where the shadow's going to come in. And again down that. And I'll have a little bit of that up here as well. All with that same mix, raw umber and sand. Add some down here. And whilst I'm at that, I can do the steps as well, which are just strokes that offset one against the other. There. There. Now, a little bit of stonework as well in that. Just a few strokes. Don't start painting lots of individual stones, because otherwise you do end up with a building that looks like it's got chicken pox. The stroke here for the, I don't know if they're called lintels, I think they're lintels. Anyway, the top bits of the window. And now a few stones. The impression of a few stones. I'm not getting that colour too strong, and again it's that same mix, raw umber and sand. And you see now how quickly the building, which is quite a big building, and when you're drawing something like that or painting something like that, it can be quite scary, but you see how quickly it comes together once you start and get the first base wash on. And the chimneys up the top, I'm going to have those, I'm just looking at my paint, at my photograph here. I'm going to have one of those in light red, just that. And I'll have one in yellow ochre, just because I can. What I'll put on the bottom. Now, whilst that's drying, I'm going to go over here to the far distant roof to start with, which again is ultramarine blue, but this time with a tiny touch of light red into it, like so. And just pop that in there. Oops. And it's a little bit strong, so I'm just going to run across with a damp brush, take a little bit out, that's better. And just clear up my mucky, smudgy mark there. Gone. This is the thing with watercolours, people think once you make a mistake, you can't get rid of it. It's nonsense, wash it out. Now a little bit of burnt sienna and raw umber mixed. That's my ready bricky colour. Ready bricky, you know what I mean. A bit there. Now more water into the same brush full of paint so that it's weaker for that side. And the chimney. That's old red brick. So I'm going to start off again, raw umber and burnt sienna. And we'll have that across there. As I say, I'm going to have some ivy growing up that. But believe it or not, this is the darkest side first. Light's going to hit that one there. A little bit of white left on top. And a little bit there as the paint gets weaker because it's running off the brush. The one that's further away there. Now a little bit more water into that same mix so that I can drop some in there. Now, you know how you get the white washed bits on walls, old brick? I'm just going to drop a little bit of sand in there, here and there. Make it look a little bit tatty. I'm quite sure Rob won't be very pleased about that. But that wall is a bit tatty. And a little bit over there. I'm going to make that mix darker with more raw umber into it. So it's still raw umber and burnt sienna, but just more raw umber so it's darker. And that's for inside the arch there. And now just something through that. So it's not just white. Back to the building now. And I've got a little bit of ultramarine blue and light red mixed for that entrance porchway type roofy bit. Very descriptive. There, that's that bit done. Now with the same colour, I'm going to do the windows. Ultramarine blue. Oh sorry, it's not the same colour. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. That's for the windows. And plenty of water into that mix. And how many windows painted have we got? 6 in each. So, I don't think I've got the room actually. 1, 2. Yes, I have. And this is what I'm talking about. Paint window panes, not window frames. You don't be messing about with individual frames and neck curtains behind them. And again, these will get less as they go further away, as you see less of them. Couple in there. And back to here. And immediately when you get the windows in a building, it gives it its character. It's a bit, I always think it's a bit like painting the eyes in someone when you're doing a portrait. If you get the eyes in, the character's revealed. That may be just me talking artistic guff, but I know what I mean. And in the door, got some windows in there as well. Coming so far down. There. Now it's time for shadow on that one. Now, again, raw umber and burnt sienna for that brick colour. And a little bit stronger, because all I'm going to do is add a few bits of detail into this wall here and there. A few tiny strokes of brick with the tip of my number 8 round. Have you noticed how much my number 8 round's done in this one, by the way? Such a useful brush because you can press on and get a broader stroke, and then with the tiny tip of it, get quite a fine stroke, like that. Not like that, just like that. And as I said, I'm going to have some ivy growing up there and some general planty bits. So I've got a little bit of yellow ochre to start with. Fairly strong, this. A little bit of water. And now split my number 8 round brush and stick along. Now, Hooker's Green and Burnt Sienna, good and strong, plenty of Burnt Sienna into it. Hooker's Green, Burnt Sienna, and again, split that brush. So I've made a mess of it like that. And stick along. There, ivy going up the wall. A few bits there. And now a little bit of black. Remember, don't use black, make your black. Manufactured black is horrible, flat and dead. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. There we go. Black. A bit more blue. There we go. A bit more water. And again, split that brush. And stick along. There we go. How simple is that? I've got a little bit of grass down there, Hooker's Green and yellow ochre, fairly weak, underneath that one there, and a little bit stronger for here and across here. So easy that. And now, that bush there. And for this one, I'm going to use my 3/4 inch brush, 3/4 inch flat. And again, yellow ochre. Split the brush. Now, Hooker's Green and Burnt Sienna. Not as dark as I did the ivy, but it's fairly strong. Hooker's Green, bit of Burnt Sienna there. Bit of water. And split brush. I really do abuse my brushes, but these will take all the hammer that I give them. And as you know, I use the same brushes for my acrylics as well. Now again, shadow will come into play for that lot in a few minutes. In the meantime, I've got this tree here, it's a little bit further away, and raw umber with a touch of blue, ultramarine blue. And that's the brush that I've just knocked hell out of, and now it's given me a lovely fine point, like so. A little bit more there. Oops. And again, still with the same brush, I'm just going to do a little bit of yellow ochre first. But this time, with the side of the round brush, just drag down like so. And again, Hooker's Green. Actually, this time Hooker's Green and yellow ochre. A lot of yellow ochre. And again, with the side of that round brush. And darken that a little bit more this bit of brush here that comes in front of that tree. And now finally a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue again. Pop some of that in there, behind the wall, and around that bit there. So that cuts that further back. Side of the brush again. Now just a clean damp brush and soften some bits in. And there we go, that's the distance bit, it's done. There. Now it's time for all the shadow on the house, and this finishes off the building, the main bit. The mix again, ultramarine blue, of course that's the blue of the sky, touch of alizarin crimson and a touch of burnt sienna, and I'm after like a dark aubergine colour here. I'm starting off within the windows, look, a big dark stroke there and down the inside there. And again here and down the inside there. You see how that immediately recesses the window into the building. Recesses, whatever. A bit here. And again, you'll notice I'm not dipping in again. Just let the colour run out of the brush. I shall dip in now to start at this side here. And down the inside of the window again. Fine point of the brush there, look. We'll leave that one for a second. Now inside there. And finally down there. And within the doorway. Now a few bits underneath here. All the way across. Getting slightly, again a slightly finer line as I go further away. Now with a clean damp brush, what I'm going to do is soften underneath that line. So it spreads ever so slightly. That's just with water on the brush. And down here. As I will always say, the shadow gives the building its depth, its shape, and also its character. Put there. along the chimneys as well. Down that left-hand side. Now a little bit of age onto that building, just a lot more water into that same mix, and a few dabs here and there. Looks like I'm making a mess of it, doesn't it? That's because I am. Now, with a clean white brush, soften those marks. And there, that's the big building, the main character, done and finished with. Wasn't that difficult, was it? Now it's time for a lot of planty bits down here, planty bits, shrubby bits and rose bushes or whatever. And for this mix I've got hooker's green, and this time light red. It's giving me a different green again. Bit of an old-fashioned green that I like, hooker's green and light red. And just stippling on here and there, look. Bit there, just dabbing on the number 8 round steps, which helps to enhance the steps a little bit. Now a little bit of yellow ochre, just yellow ochre onto the brush, and while that's all still good and wet, if I just tap the yellow ochre in here, that will merge with the green a little bit and give me a different tone going further forward. Like so. Now, merging a little bit. And now back to this effect with the ivy again. But this time, just hooker's green and burnt sienna mix. I'm not going in with the yellow ochre. Hooker's green and burnt sienna mix, good and strong. So it's, as I said, without the yellow ochre, just the hooker's green and the burnt sienna and the split brush, and I'm stippling upwards, look, like so. Just a few bits here and there. Roughing it up a bit. So that now, with a little bit of alizarin crimson, just with the tip of my brush, I just pop on with a few red bits there, look like that. Don't want to go mad with them, but just a few taps of red is nice. Like so. Now, before I go in with this big evergreen here, I want to stick the drive on, whack it on, so that that can be drying whilst I'm doing that. So what I've got here, a little bit of ultramarine blue and light red mixed. And plenty of water into it, and just fill that in like so. A bit more water as I go further away. And that kind of like ties everything together now. And the reason why I'm doing that first is so, like I said, this can be drying whilst I'm doing the big evergreen. So that once I finish the big evergreen to the left, I can then put a lot of shadow in here, in this foreground. So still with my big brush, 3/4 inch flat, a bit of yellow ochre. And that's a big tree, but don't start fiddling about doing leaves. It's a conifer of some kind, is this one. What I'm doing, tap on with my yellow ochre, keeping that fairly strong. Now, Hooker's Green, Burnt Sienna and Ultramarine Blue. The three colour mix. Hooker's Green, Burnt Sienna and a little bit of Ultramarine Blue. Nice dark rich green there. In fact, as it comes further down, that could be do with being a little bit darker even. Now I just need to break up the edge of that a little bit. Look, like so. I'll bring a little bit round here. And finally, just blue. Ultramarine blue. Make it nice and dark down there. Yellow ochre and Hooker's Green for a touch of grass just down there. Flicking upwards there. Now it's time for final shadows in here and a little bit back there. So what I'm doing, I'm using my 3/4 inch wash brush for this, and we'll have, again, that mix, ultramarine blue, bit of alizarin crimson like so, and now tone that back with burnt sienna. So it's blue of your sky, plus alizarin crimson, plus burnt sienna. There, a bit more blue, better. And what I'll do is start with, we'll have some shadow down here. From those trees there, and we'll have a bit of shadow here from that tree onto the wall, and we'll have a little bit next to the ivy there, a little bit on that chimney, a little bit at the base. Now it's always good to imagine something out of shot. So we'll have, it's a bit of digital art there. So we'll have a tree over here. Like so. And actually there are some trees over there in reality. Just dabbing on, leaving some of the undercolour showing through, so you get it more dappled. And a few little touches just here and there to give a bit of bumpiness into that driveway. And now what I need to do is take off my tape and see a finished picture. And there we go, a finished painting. It's always nice when you take the tape off and get a big white reveal around the edges. And that's what I've been working from. Put that on there. And I haven't made too many changes. Just missed out my car. Made a little bit more of the wall at the back and stuck some shadow in the foreground there. A very pleasing little painting. But like I said, once you get the drawing done, the actual painting of it is really quite easy. It's just a matter of filling in your blocks. But remember this wet into wet with the front of the building. That's really important because you get a nice softness to the stonework. Not harsh, and you don't get any hard lines where you don't want them. So don't fiddle about too much. Give this one a go. Hope you enjoy it. See you soon.